Welcome to Reclaim Within the podcast. I am Ash, and this is my very first episode. Before I dive into exploring the topic and concepts for the day, I want to introduce myself. I have been working with the human experience for as long as I can remember. I began studying astrology when I was 13, and I have evolved quite a bit since I first started exploring that topic or that concept. But really, it's just a way to understand the human experience. So I can say that I have been truly exploring the human experience and how we work since I was 13 years old. So for over 20 years, I've been interested in the human experience. I studied anthropology, sociology, and art history in college. And the reason I chose to take the deep dive on the humanities is because the humans and our experience here on this earth has been endlessly fascinating to me my whole life. I feel like allowing people to explore who they are and step more into their wholeness and create the lives they actually want to be living, but from the inside out, has been a passion of mine since I can remember. And I have been able to really walk that path and welcome others onto that path as well. And it has been one of the greatest joys of my whole life. So today, I want to introduce you to Reclaim Within and what that means to me. For the last 7 years, I have been working with individuals and groups of people, helping them explore their consciousness and understand from a broader perspective who they actually want to be in this world. I'm here to invite you on the same journey through the virtual landscape. I'd love to hold this container of this podcast to be a place and space where you can actually find remembrance and reconnect with the sacredness of your true essence and what you're here for in this life. And it's not a job, and it's not something you do. It's something that you be. It's the essence that you are. I hope to invoke that memory in you just by being here and speaking about different concepts. So every week I will release a newsletter on Substack speaking about a different concept or a different way of seeing the world. And then at the same time, I am hoping to release a weekly podcast speaking about that concept or that way of seeing the world in a different way through more of a loose forum that is podcasting. I have to admit, first and foremost, that writing feels really good to me. I very much enjoy writing because I can write something and rewrite it and I can edit it, whereas podcasting feels more vulnerable to me. And yet that is actually what Reclaim Within is all about. It's about allowing for our full spectrum of our human experience to exist. So I very much want to share this podcast with you. It's going to be more vulnerable for me. It's also going to be a bit more raw and unplanned. And I will share more with you about my personal experiences through the podcast. I'll also be able to share stories about clients I've worked with and ways that I've seen our consciousness shift in the time that I've been studying our existence here. So let's speak really quickly about what is consciousness, because that is a very intense word, and I don't think that we all can fully grasp what it means. The most simple way I've ever heard consciousness explained is it's your ability to be in choice with the responses that you have in your life. Consciousness is so much more than that. It's our ability to witness ourselves. So consciousness, or the exploration or study of consciousness, is about, one, being able to be in choice with how we respond to life, and two, being able to actually understand that we are the one witnessing life. We are not our thoughts. We are not our feelings. We are not what happens to us. We are not the labels that we are given. We are actually something beyond that. And consciousness is having that witnessing capacity to see something arise or to witness someone experiencing an emotional disturbance in their human experience. And consciousness is the ability that we have to not take that on as ours, or not to take it on and get defensive. This is a practice that will take probably all of our whole lives to really understand. But when we actually can engage consciousness, when we can engage conscious choice and understanding that we are something greater than the sum of our parts. We are something greater than the thoughts we are having. We are the ones witnessing the thoughts we are having. That's our essence, our true self. The study of consciousness is then how do we interact with the outside world and the inside world as the movement constantly happens, right? The world is constantly shifting and changing and evolving. And how conscious are we of our part of that experience? And how do I bring ourselves to it? So that has been what I have spent my time on this earth trying to explore and understand through studying different cultures and how they exist, through studying how our connection to choice exists in our day-to-day, moment-to-moment. I've worked a lot with relationships within my own family structure and my own lived experience, but I've also worked a lot with partnerships or people who are in relationship with one another. I've had my fair share of heartache. I've also caused my fair share of heartache. I've had my fair share of hardship in this life, and I've caused hardship in this life. I truly believe that to reclaim within is to be able to find the humanity in each and every one of us, and to reclaim that too, or maybe to reclaim that especially. I have found in my own journey that the more that I honor what it means to not always be in my best self, to not always respond to life with consciousness, yet I am able to react to that experience with care and compassion and reverence, the more sacred my life has felt to me. So the more that I've been able to make a mistake or make a huge blunder or do something that I wish I hadn't done, but then at the other end of that spectrum, instead of judging or shaming myself or allowing for someone else to judge me or shame me, when I have been able to remember that I am a human being, which means I am here for the whole human experience, and that my humanity is my greatest gift, but also the hardest pill to swallow sometimes. And I'm able to have that compassion for both pieces of the brilliance and the beauty, and also the places and spaces where I fall short. That's where I have been able to weave a life where everything I do and everywhere I go, everything feels so, so sacred to me. But it's been in making all of the not brilliant, beautiful experiences relevant and seen and understood, and metaphorically holding, that I too deserve care and compassion for those hurt parts that have both been harmed and have done the harming. So yes, I have walked through darkness. I've walked through heartache. I have transformed more times than I can count at this point in my experience. And in my quest in this life and in my darkest moments, I have been seeking authenticity, and I have been seeking understanding for what and how we exist and what we've forgotten. I think that has been a huge piece of this life. And so to reclaim is to pull back something that has been forgotten, but we are reclaiming it. And so not only do I hope to help you remember who you are, but I hope to help you reclaim who you are. And from the inside out, to return to your hearts, to return to all of our hearts, and to return to the compassion for our deeply feeling human experience that we're all having. And in today's world, there's distractions all around. And so it's really easy, actually, unfortunately, to lose connection with our own inner landscapes. I remember growing up, there was often a TV on behind me or all the time. And that TV would almost distract and like pull our consciousness into it so that almost we didn't have to sit with ourselves and what was actually there. And so I make it a practice to go on walks with silence and find those spaces to actually be quiet. And it's often a little unnerving at first because it's so much easier to fill our space. So to be able to return to a sacred space and to learn to cultivate that harmony within ourselves, I like to call it building that connection to our own inner kingdoms. It's about learning to live with honor, dignity, and respect, and to find the wonder for this life and all that that means and all that that entails. So I'm hoping that this podcast will be a space and a place where you're inspired to go on a journey of self-sovereignty, to find a path within your life that feels real, honest, and aligned, that is actually more revolutionary in this moment in time, I believe, than ever before. Can you get very real with yourself of where you're at and how aligned you feel like you are to your soul? We live in a world that really pushes us towards external achievement or conformity, and yet that conformity or external achievement or needing to fit in or be politically correct, right? That's another form of fitting in, needing to make sure that it's not, I'm doing it the right way, I'm saying it the right way. All of those reactions are ways of bypassing our humanity and not aligning with our true essence. The deepest fulfillment in this life will come from actually allowing yourself to do it messy, to connect with your inner kingdom and trust that it's a ceremony of life that we're on, and to learn self-respect and to learn to honor our complexity of being when that hasn't been modeled necessarily. And if it has, wonderful, bless you. A lot of us have not had great modeling for self-respect, honor for the complexity of this experience that we're having. And that's okay. And yet that's where the good stuff lives. When we begin to be able to integrate all of ourselves and have space within ourselves for even those painful and uncomfortable parts, that's where life awakens. Because the more that you sit with discomfort, many people really do not like moving towards discomfort. I mean, who does? I don't love moving towards discomfort. But what happens when you allow yourself to be uncomfortable is that you stretch your capacity and you build resilience. When you go to the gym, you tear the muscle and it's sore. That's not comfortable, but you know that you're gaining something. It's actually a part of the life path to live this life in honor of life. Life grows. Life is for growing. You're not going to grow if you stay comfortable. If you stay comfortable all of the time. There's a time and a place for comfort, and there's a time and a place for discomfort, but growth happens when you let yourself rub up against the places that maybe don't always feel so joyful. And speaking of that, something I find fascinating is that joy tends to be a very hard thing for someone to connect with. Often what makes people so uncomfortable is being truly happy, to truly honor the sacredness of this experience and to allow themselves to have that euphoria, to have that bliss, to have that joyful life, to dream big. So it's actually about learning to sit with the full spectrum of our humanity. That's what I will hopefully be covering as the weeks go by, is how do we sit with the full spectrum of our human experience, with the joy, with the wonder, with the sorrow, with the frustration, and with everything in between. And in doing so, we actually get to learn how to honor the vessel that carries us this beautiful body of ours, and see our lives as a work of art woven from our experiences, from our strengths, yes, but also from our struggles. To reclaim within is to reclaim all the experiences that you've lived in this life and to celebrate what you've learned from each of those experiences. It's to take radical responsibility for this life experience that is yours, that you are having. People say, oh, it's easier to be in the victim role. It's not. Life is not fully lived when you allow yourself to stay in that role. I heard a quote the other day. It was beautiful. It was like, you can be a victim once. After that, you're repeating a pattern. So honor the hurt, honor the struggle. And then how do we learn to weave that hurt and that pain into the tapestry of our human experience, to honor it as a sacred part of our journey in this life? Reclaim within. I'm hoping to share pieces that allow you to orient differently, to invoke a new experience with your own emotional intelligence. One of the greatest disservices I believe that we face today is the pressure to bypass our feelings, to numb out, or to stay in that toxic positivity space without actually facing reality, like our true, real experiences. It is only, in my experience and working with so many clients up at this point, the only way that we can truly live in the fullness of our human experience, to enjoy the sacred experience of life, is by embracing the full range of our emotions and have compassion for those experiences that we uncover. As we meet ourselves and all these parts of ourselves deeper and deeper, we actually get to learn what it means to truly be human. And oh my goodness, it's a beautiful experience when we allow ourselves to not be perfect, but we allow ourselves to get really real. We allow ourselves to remember, to reclaim that we are here to grow, to learn, to make mistakes, and to love fiercely through it all. This last year, I have moved through a lot of sorrow. I've had a lot of loss in my life. Some intentionally, I've needed to walk away from some relationships that just did not serve because they did not have compassion for me, or they did not have compassion for someone that was close to me. And that's okay, right? If you can't have compassion for my humanity, then like I am happily going to walk into a different direction. And I bless you. But through it all, I can say that I've loved fiercely. And not one loss I've had this year came with a lack of love. It was, I love fiercely, actually, in all directions. I love so fiercely. And I bet you do too. So ask yourself, what do you feel like it means to be truly human? Do you allow yourself to feel the full depth of your human experience? Or is it scary? And do you rather like to feel comfortable? Do you feel like you have a space and a place to go to? Do you feel like you have people that you can turn to that can honor you in your humanity, honor you in your joy and your bliss, and in your sorrow and in your pain, and in your grumpy days and in your happy days? On my own path of reclaiming within, learning to honor all of me and sit with the discomfort that comes with really desiring to understand what this human experience is, I've found so much strength, and I've also felt so deeply vulnerable. And I understand that true strength actually is in allowing ourselves to feel vulnerable, to get soft, and to get real. And as I've done this, I've come to see how the heart can really, truly hold all of it. Our hearts have the resilience and the capacity to hold and understand so much complexity in this life. It's only our fear that it's going to be too much that keeps us from being able to sink deeper into our heart's abilities. Like You would be amazed with how much a human heart can hold. I'm pretty sure it's endless. Ask anyone who's gone through any sense of loss in their life and really truly felt it and allowed the process to happen and allowed the pain to unfold. It has the loss this year for me has connected me so deeply into how sacred life actually is. It's been a wild and beautiful ride. In Reclaim Within, one of my favorite things to do with people is to really reorient of, okay, so we're here to reclaim within. That means we're going to reclaim lost spaces or places or remember who we actually are. But what does that mean? Like, what are we working towards? Well, we're actually working towards building your inner kingdom, allowing for you to understand the complexity of your humanness will allow for you to actually be able to see that your reality outside of you, it's not about changing something on the outside. It's not making sure something looks good on the outside. It's actually when you feel truly, really amazing on the inside, it just shows up. You show up differently on the outside. Your external world shifts by building and focusing on the brilliance and the beauty of your inner kingdom. And this inner kingdom is not about building up walls that keep others out. It's actually about building healthy boundaries, healthy relationships to yourself and to others. It's actually about creating a sanctuary within ourselves, a space where we can explore our dreams, our thoughts, our fears without judgment. Or even if the judgment does come up, to have compassion for the judgment too. Building an inner kingdom is actually where we learn self-sovereignty. We learn that we have needs and we learn how to understand them and then learn to build a life that reflects our true essence. I believe that this inner work is sacred and it's a foundation for a life that feels whole, full, and real. Living a sacred life means getting really connected with reality, not escaping it. It means truly honoring each moment. It means finding harmony between our inner landscape, our inner world, and the lives that we're creating outside of us. It's about learning respect, both for ourselves and for others, for the earth. And it's about learning to really attune to where our strengths are and where our vulnerabilities are so that we can cultivate a deeper connection and remembrance and bolster ourselves. I've moved through a lot of overwhelm and I've used a lot of really cool tools to move through that overwhelm. And it's taken me a while to bolster myself so that I can understand when that overwhelm comes up, how to respond to it differently. It's been a beautiful unfolding. The more I've leaned into it and gotten vulnerable and been able to talk about that overwhelm does come up sometimes, the more I can tend to that inner sanctuary, the more that I can build up healthy boundaries to create that inner kingdom so that when those moments come up where I'm starting to feel that overwhelm, I know now how to respect myself and how to connect to what I need so that I don't end up lashing out or going overboard and getting burnt out. And that has been a really interesting life practice for me. It's taken me a while to get there. I'm so grateful that I feel that this is even something I'm able to do in this moment. Getting to a point where I feel like I truly have the resources within myself to even share in this capacity, to take time to write a new concept every week and then also be able to get really vulnerable with you and share in podcast form at the same time. It feels like such an honor to even be here in this moment in time speaking to whomever is listening to this. So I just want to take a brief moment and thank my mentors, thank my teachers, thank the ancestors who have walked before me that allowed me to be here right now. I also want to thank all of those of you who have supported me up to this point. And I also want to thank everyone who has not supported me or has not supported my family and who has challenged me, because you've been my teacher too. And I am grateful forever for all of my teachers, mentors, and all of those of you out there that have both supported and not supported me. I also want to thank you to whoever is listening this. Thank you for being here. And I hope that this space becomes a sanctuary and a place of depth and understanding, a place where you can come that allows you to be real, messy, and beautiful. The concepts I am hoping to cover in the coming episodes are things that have really lit me up from the inside out. And so I'll be writing about those weekly and then publishing a riffing podcast, hopefully every week as well. I really want to speak to the difficult things that we don't always talk about in normal conversation. I want to be able to talk about inner sovereignty, authentic living, and building a life that is in harmony with our deepest values. I also want to talk about what's disruptive and how to move on after loss and what it actually feels like to have fear and how to learn from it. I invite you to join me on the journey and learn how to begin mapping out your own inner kingdom to reclaim the beauty of all of it and the sacredness that has always been with you. And we can learn to move through that and decondition together as we move through, as you follow me on this journey. I guess I'll say it that way. So thank you so much for joining my very first episode of Reclaim Within. If you do feel called to subscribe to this space, I will be so grateful. I am going to be writing on Substack, and this podcast will be live on Substack and Spotify and Apple, I believe. I have to figure out how to get it on there. I am really honored to be here with you, and I look forward to exploring together again. So until next time, let's continue to reclaim our hearts, our souls, and the sacredness of this life. Thank you so much.